Greetings, Barcadians, and welcome to another edition or episode of Gaming News Weekly with your hosts, me, Tabs, my good friend Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello, how's everyone doing?
Barcadians, you know the score. If you're new to this show, then it's every Friday, 5 p.m. UK time. We tell you what we've been playing in the week just gone by. We then touch upon normally 3 juicy topics in the games industry. And then we finish off with a rapid fire everything else round just to mop up that we couldn't feature in the main. So if you give us a like, that'd be much appreciated. A very kind thing to do. Subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing, and ring the bell for notifications. But Rich, it's been a busy week for us both. Busy couple of weeks in terms of what we've been playing.
Absolutely.
I think it's exclusive to one game that we're just constantly being overawed by. What is it, mate? Tell all.
It's Elden Ring, obviously. I think we'd said last week we'd started playing it together. So we're playing it more of a multiplayer co-op game, which is a way you can play it. But we're trying to do the entire game like that, and I have to say it's extremely enjoyable. Just, I guess learning about the game and exploring it together has been a real joy so far. I mean, obviously it's a Souls game, so at points it's extremely difficult, and there's times when you just turn your back on stuff. But the way they were implemented the open world is incredible. We actually had last night. We found a map. We'd opened up to a new area following a boss last night. It might have been the previous night actually. And last night we were like, right, well let's push into this new area, and we found a map fragment, and then we were like, oh, it like more than doubled the size of the map instantly, and we were just like overawed by how big this game is. The world is just huge. It's crazy, but yeah, absolutely loving playing it. I think we're approaching like 22 hours strong or something. I think Tabs is on about 30, 35. But yeah, it's good. I'm really enjoying it. Tabs?
I think I am on a little bit more because, and this comes into the multiplayer thing, doesn't it? The way we're playing it. Like, if there's one criticism, it's just not really built that well for the multiplayer cooperative experience, because you're just stripped of so much, and it's such a big world, and there's so much exploration. Like, we just can't really explore the world together. And of course, when we do it in one of our worlds, a section of it, let's say, an area, then the other person has to retread it. And I think we've had a few times recently where we've been jumping into your world, we push you on, and then I'll tend to just polish it off afterwards.
Yeah.
And in fact, the roles have reversed on this last section we've just done. You're in that position. Which again, it just causes a little bit of we're constantly trying to balance and hold ourselves to account to try and make sure we're more or less on track. But yeah, it's just a little bit of a challenge in that respect. But yeah, it's a marvelous game. It's just constantly amazes you. It's paced, really well. So even though we've just literally said this, we've actually done a bit of research, because we kind of hit a wall because of the difficulty with Elden Ring. We hit a bit of a frustrating wall where you just don't feel like you're powerful enough. And probably a lot to do with our skills more than anything.
Absolutely.
So we did the usual researching online a little bit, just to try and get a build to aim towards, and some tips on things we could look for in the world to make that happen. We should also admit and confess, Rich, that we've also done a bit of a farming tactic when it comes to leveling up.
We have indeed.
Again, just to help alleviate that situation a little bit. And I felt a bit conflicted about it. I think we both did. We both probably felt a bit like, we're sort of cheating this. And I had to bring the kibosh down on a level cap. But then we go and unlock this map, and it's just like, oh my god, we've barely scratched the surface. So whereas I almost feel like I've played a whole game and had a whole game's worth of enjoyment, it seems like there's could be 2-3 times that still to play.
Easy.
And yeah, the talk is at the minute that we might draw time on any outside research. I don't know if that's been given the go-ahead yet.
I don't see why. Obviously we've got a foothold in the game. I would say we've got a decent foothold in the game now, which is sort of half the battle with Souls games. I remember when we first started on Demon Souls, and you were literally moving a little bit, dying, moving a little bit, and it was that little grind. Well, I feel like we're past that point now. We're strong enough to move through areas a bit more confidently, and I feel like maybe that is the time to go, okay, well, we'll find what we find. We'll pick up what we pick up. We know we've got a farming technique we can go back to if we need to.
Which we've nicknamed Arcadians hitting the ball. Because you basically have to dodge this ball enemy, drops off a cliff, gives you a load of souls, and you do that ad infinitum over and over again.
So yeah, that's it. Anyone that hasn't played Elden Ring and that thinks are not a big fan of Souls games, I genuinely think this is a watershed moment for Souls games. It is so approachable compared to Souls games and that I've played anyway. And yeah, I honestly think this is just a brilliant game. And despite the fact that we have feelings of there is so much to do, the game is so big, the map is so big, it doesn't give me like the anxiety that I get from seeing games like Horizon and games like that where there's so many things on the map to see and do that I have that anxiety of I'm never going to get around to everything. Whereas this, because of the way in which they've done that, there's a gentler pace to life in a lot of respects, and the way that you find stuff and move through it fills me with a lot of replayability that I want to go back and look at stuff and that. So yeah, really good.
You're playing it for the enjoyment of it, aren't you? And the progression, rather than like feeling like you need to measure yourself against a checklist, which can take a lot of the fun out of it, I think.
Yeah, I think those kind of games, and don't get me wrong, I love those games. There's a bit of a gotta catch 'em all sort of scenario with them. Like it's almost, like you say, you've got this tick list of items, and it's almost saying, oh, you need to go and do this, you need to go and do this, and it's very guided. And yeah, don't know. I'm really enjoying this anyway.
Arcadians, get into it if you haven't already. It's fantastic. You won't regret it. But anyway, let's move us on. Story number 1 this week, and I'm on point with my headlines this week, Arcadians. I've got to warn you for these stunners, and it reads, Tunic fitting nicely, ... So this is just a review roundup of an indie title that's been released, I think this week, called Tunic. So currently sitting on Metacritic at an 87, at least on the PC. And we've got 3 reviews as ever to give us that cross-section. I'll start off. VG247, sitting at 100, or 10 out of 10. Tunic comes at a perfect time, in the middle of a packed release schedule, dripping with titles that delight in killing you. It's a calmer, more mild-mannered take on the adventure game that wants to engage in a friendly dialogue. It doesn't want to yell at you, it wants to encourage you, to explore, engage, and experiment. It's the perfect palate cleanser, taking anywhere between 6 and 20 hours, and absolutely essential if you've got a fondness for adventure games with a potion in the pocket, a cape around the neck, and a twinkle in the eye.
Nice.
Sounds good.
Destructoid gave it a 90, and they had this to say. Tunic strokes my ego from start to finish. I frequently found myself muttering, "You devious bastard." It speaks the language of games gone by while injecting both modernity, and its own personal twist. It's brilliant enough to stand apart, and this is one garment I recommend you slip into. Maybe with some leggings. It would look nice.
funny review that. And then lastly, Screen Rant gave it an 80, and they said, there are a lot of interesting and dangerous places in Tunic that offer enough diversity to make the game exciting the whole way through. The fixed camera angle makes it easy to miss hidden areas, such as a path behind a waterfall or a room around the corner, but discovering new sections of Tunic is part of what makes it so fun. The possibility that anything can be cleverly hidden just outside of view makes exploring worthwhile. Tunic is a highly enjoyable action-adventure game that does well in honouring some of the classic titles it was inspired by. So yeah, I thought we'd just feature this one because it's nice to see like an indie sort of game do so well in the reviews and the receptions we're seeing. And as they kind of state there, it's a really good palate cleanser, given where we are in this kind of packed schedule of AAA beast releases. So, and it's kind of, I feel like it's in our wheelhouse, Rich, because we love our Zelda games. This feels almost like a little pocket adventure game, sort of probably akin to your Zelda handheld experience, Game Boy, GBA, whatever, Switch. So I thought it would be nice to feature just in case anybody's interested. Sounds like a decent purchase. Does it tickle your fancy, mate?
Hilarious. To be fair, it looks really cool, and I like the sound of a 6 to 20 hour adventure. That's like a real nice. I mean, obviously we're currently playing Elden Ring. We spoke about that at length, and we know it's going to be circa maybe 100 hours. Which can feel a bit overwhelming, but you can't go just from one 100-hour game to the next. So games like this in between are like the perfect sort of pick-me-up from such big adventures. So I think this sits really well and could be one to pick up in the future.
This is it, mate. Some of these puzzles, they just sound like they're right up your alley, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Move us on though, mate. Story
absolutely.
number 2.
So, another classic headline by Tabs, In Perfect Dark. So, VGC had this to say on this story. Xbox, the initiative studio, has seen a fast and furious wave of senior departures in the past 12 months, VGC has learned. As much as half of the core development team known to be working on the upcoming Perfect Dark Reboot quit the company during the last year, or around 36 people. Analysis of employees' LinkedIn profiles has revealed. That includes most of the initiative's senior design team, including game director Dan Newberger, design director Drew Murray, lead level designer Chris O'Neill, principal world builder Jolien Myers, 2 senior systems designers, a group of 3 former God of War designers, and more. And the turnover of top talent doesn't end in design. Perfect Dark's 2 most senior writers also recently quit, analysis shows, along with the project's technical director, tech art director, lead gameplay engineer, lead animator, QA, lead, and more. Wow, basically everybody's left. The timings of these departures coincide with the September 2021 announcement that Crystal Dynamics had been signed to co-develop Perfect Dark. This, combined with the few job roles currently advertised at the initiative, suggests that the Tomb Raider developer is likely taking a much stronger lead than first thought on the project. So I think it's cool that we've had some new information on this, and a little bit worrying, I would say, that we've got all these people left, but do we sort of think that makes sense, Tabs, given the fact that another studio has come on board to maybe co-develop it? Would that make sense that some people would move away from the project?
I think it suggests, you don't know, but it suggests there's some development issues, doesn't it? I'm sure they build themselves this initiative as like a quadruple A studio, like a super group of industry talent. And it's, it's all speculation because there's no Jason Schreier article out yet, blowing the whole story apart. But
yeah.
I suppose when you get really talented people together, does it always work? Are there a lot of egos in the room? Does it? Do you have that chemistry that you need when, a collective enterprise? It's like football, isn't it? Teams, individual talent, individual players can be amazing, but bringing them all together, and we've talked about it with a team that I support, Man United. Does it always equal, a cohesion and synergy?
I think it's always interesting as well. Obviously, another studio has been brought in to sort of help see this over the line or whatever. Well, it stands to reason that people are going to have, from a different studio, are going to have different takes on the way of working, the way it should be done, what the story should be, etc., etc. And I guess from that, feathers got ruffled, people move on. There's enough talent still on this project for it to be a decent game. So the fact that a load of people has left shouldn't be too worrying. There's still lots of decent, talented people on it. I'm absolutely certain of that. So I just think, it's one of those. Maybe the only thing I will say is, have some of these people left because of the thought? Obviously, this studio has been brought in to help on development. Well, if they've been brought on because they weren't doing a good enough job, so has that ruffled feathers? I don't know. It's a difficult one to know how to take this.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, we don't have enough to go on, but I think there's some accusations that there could be a soft reboot happening of the project because they've brought in, Crystal Dynamics, an established team, to perhaps reboot things because it just wasn't going the right way. Yeah, there could be any number of reasons, couldn't there? They might have had issues working from home. There might be, the leadership hierarchy might be problematic and be causing delays. There's just so many reasons, so it's hard to label that. But either way, it sounds like they've had problems, but they've got this established team in who we know have got a pedigree, and fingers crossed they can steward the franchise forward because, it's got a huge fan base. Obviously, it was sort of the spiritual successor to GoldenEye, wasn't it? Perfect Dark. So I'd love to see it, reach the heights of its heritage and legacy. So
absolutely.
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely right, Tabs. That's enough. Let's go back to talking about Elden Ring.
Indeed. So yeah, third banger of a headline this week. Elden Bling. I'm most proud of that.
He's loving it. He's absolutely
I'm most proud of that
one.
So Engadget had this to say. Bandai Namco expected From Software's Elden Ring to sell 4 million copies in 5 weeks. It would have been already impressive if that's what had happened, considering Dark Souls 3 sold 3 million copies within a month after it came out. Elden Ring, however, eclipsed the company's expectations. It sold 12 million units worldwide, 1 million of which were sold in Japan alone within 18 days of its release. The companies have announced the game's blockbuster sales numbers in a press release and also mentioned the possibility of expanding the IP beyond the realm of games. Wait for that Netflix adaptation, Rich, I know that. According to the announcement, those numbers came from the distribution figures of the package version and sales figures of the downloadable versions as of March the 14th, 2022. With those sales numbers, Elden Ring smashed a bunch of other records associated with Souls-typed games. From Software's previous release, Sekiro, sold 2 million copies in 10 days, and it took 4 years for Dark Souls 3, the best-selling game in the series, to reach 10 million units sold worldwide. Based on how well it's doing, it seems apt to compare Elden Ring to Pokemon Legends Arceus, which sold 6.5 million copies in 7 days, and that's a game from a franchise that already has a massive following. So it's just nice to draw a big circle around such a huge and surprising success story. From a team which, they've been building their profile and reputation over the years. Absolutely, they've got that niche genre and place in the games industry. But for them to just find, they've almost created this hybrid genre, open world Souls type, and it's been a match made in heaven. And you can see that so much work has gone into it. It's such a large game. It's bafflingly large. It's almost like there's 4 games in one here in so many ways. So it's just fantastic to see, and one of those times where you hope it's a lesson to the rest of the games industry. Absolutely. To invest in projects, to invest in creative teams, because they can surprise you like this. Don't just churn out the same old franchises. Don't just churn out, what we know sells well. Experiment, be creative, let that lead. And I think this is not always the result, but blimey. I think they've basically just made themselves royalty, haven't they, in the games industry? Essentially.
Overnight.
Exactly that. And I think, I'd be happy to see them continue this, almost like a GTA franchise, mate. I want them to keep seeing releases, almost like a Zelda franchise. Yeah. I think the blueprint, the wireframe they've got is spectacular.
I will say though, now obviously this game is brilliant and was very well received, but it's a very interesting thing. Obviously, when you go to look at reviews, and me and you are very, we'll look at reviews more often than not before we buy a game. to make sure that it's decent or whatever. The reviews were so positive on this, almost across the board, with everyone saying they absolutely loved it. I always wonder whether that feeds into sales. You know, the fact that it's a good game anyway, but then it reviews really well, obviously that just blows up sales. So I think that has a lot to do with this as well. The fact it's a really good game and it was reviewed so well, because we've both played games that we think are really good that get reviewed poorly. So,
and then look, for example,
case in point, Death Stranding.
yeah, unfortunately. But then you look at it's word of mouth as well, isn't it? You look in our own kind of circle of friends. Andy, friend of the channel, who we know probably has not been the biggest Souls type or roguelike or whatever fan, but you know, I'm sure he probably was struck by the reception around it, bought it, played it, and then, you know, what was that message I remember he sent us on WhatsApp saying it's crazy epic. And that just, you know, you can imagine all those little texts and WhatsApps and social media just cascading around, and then everybody's like, I've got to get in on this because this is a milestone moment in gaming. I don't want to miss out on the experience. And it seems to be that's what's happened.
And the only thing I will say is where they mentioned about, you know, creating stuff like IP beyond the realms of games. Let's just hope when if they say do make a Netflix say series of it, it's not based on our gameplay, because that would basically be continuously dying / letting a ball fall off a cliff every 30-minute episode.
There's so much quirkiness though that they could really make a good drama of it if they get the right person. I'm thinking somebody like, you know, like James Gunn. Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, someone like that, and it's got that darkness as well, which I think he does well with. But no, I for me, Rich, you know, obviously as a Sony pony, I mean, Sony needs to be buying from software, don't they?
100%. It doesn't
I'd
make
be
any
straight
sense
in there just to lock down this, you know, this franchise and IP.
Do you know what's crazy about this? I bet you if you'd have tried to buy From Software a year ago, their stock would have been fairly middling.
A lot lower.
If you were to try to buy them today, you'd be probably having to spend 4 or 5 times the price you had to spend, just because this has blown them up. Like you say, it's basically overnight with one game made them development royalty.
Exactly. And I just hope, though, because we've seen this before, haven't we? When you get these explosions, you know, CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3. You know, can they scale up on the next project? Can they keep their heads? Can they, you know, keep their feet on the ground? And also, you get outside influences coming in, don't you? Sweeping in to kind of buy, invest, and then that distorts the vision. But I'm hopeful.
I agree. The only thing I would say is, right now, I'm like, how do you trump Elden Ring?
You make another one.
Yeah, but then you've got to make it better than the first one.
Easy.
It's like the same problem that Nintendo have with Breath of the Wild 2.
It's true.
They made close to a masterpiece, and they have that expectation of, okay, well, you're making Breath of the Wild 2, well, it better be masterpiece number 2, and that's the quandary you have, isn't it? But it's a good quandary to have.
Absolutely. We don't have the answer to that question yet, do we? But maybe soon.
Absolutely. Right, let's do everything else.
Go for it, mate.
Quantum Dreams hits back at Star Wars Eclipse delay rumours. They've basically said they never released, they never stated a release window, so how can something have been delayed when they never said when it was coming out?
Right. eFootball bafflingly beats out FIFA for Commonwealth Esports Championships. It's baffling. Yeah,
so obviously they've chosen what games are going to be part of the Esports Championship, and for a reason I can't fathom, rather than choose... Well, I mean, both of them are fairly broken, but we know full well that eFootball is really broken. So I really don't understand why on earth they've chosen that, but that's what's happened.
Politics, maybe.
Potentially. Konami updates Silent Hill trademark to include virtual reality components. Could that mean we're going to see a virtual reality Silent Hill? I hope not. That would be horrendous.
That would be horrific. GTA 5 update for next gen has been released. Reviews are sparse on the ground, but I think there's a middling to good reception, broadly speaking. Nothing hugely revolutionary, but some nice quality of life things. And I think it now takes Rich something like a minute to get into GTA Online.
Oh, that's decent, because that was a real bind, wasn't it? It took ages.
Yeah, this is it. We had some issues there. But Barcadians, that will do us for this week. We'll see you again next Friday, 5 p.m. UK time. If you're new to the channel, make sure you click the subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next week too. But I think, Rich, that's another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.